Marcus wiped the grease from his hands with a dirty rag as he looked at the small automaton sitting on his workbench. The toy was no bigger than his fist, crafted from some kind of silvery metal that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. Its design was clearly alien, too smooth, too perfect, with joints that moved in ways that shouldn't be possible with any technology he knew. The little Zephyrian girl who had brought it to him stood nearby, her large violet eyes filled with worry. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old in human terms, though with aliens it was always hard to tell. Her skin had that characteristic pale blue tint of her species, and the delicate gill slits along her neck fluttered with nervous breathing. "Please, Mr. Marcus," she said in accented standard, her voice barely above a whisper. "My papa gave this to me before he went to the war. It stopped moving yesterday, and I don't know what to do." Marcus had been running his repair shop on Nexus Station for 15 years. The massive space station served as a neutral trading post between dozens of different alien species and the human colonies. He'd seen every kind of technology imaginable pass through his shop, but this little automaton was something special. The craftsmanship was incredible, and the power source was unlike anything in his experience. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Marcus asked gently as he picked up his magnifying scope. "Lyra," she replied, stepping closer to watch him work. "My papa said you're the best mechanic on the station. He said humans can fix anything." Marcus chuckled softly. "Well, I don't know about anything, but I'll certainly try." He positioned the scope over the automaton and began examining its surface. "This is beautiful work. Your papa must be very skilled." Lyra's expression grew sad. "He was an engineer on the battleship Stormwind. They went to fight the hegemony 6 months ago. Mama says they'll come home soon, but—" She trailed off, her gills fluttering more rapidly. Marcus felt a familiar pang in his chest. The war between the Galactic Alliance and the Korath hegemony had been raging for 3 years now. Countless families had been torn apart, and too many children like Lyra were left waiting for parents who might never return. "Let's see what we can do about this little fellow," Marcus said, focusing on the automaton. Through the scope, he could see incredibly fine circuitry etched into the metal surface. The patterns were so complex they almost looked like artwork, but he recognized some of the basic principles. Power flow, logic gates, motor controls, the fundamentals were the same across all species, even if the implementation was radically different. The automaton was designed to look like a small dragon, complete with articulated wings and a long, segmented tail. When it was working properly, it would probably fly around in complex patterns, maybe even respond to voice commands. But now it lay still and lifeless on his workbench. Marcus spent the next hour carefully tracing the circuits, following the power pathways from the tiny fusion cell in the creature's chest to the various actuators and processors throughout its body. The Zephyrians were known for their precision engineering, but this was exceptional work even by their standards. "There," he said finally, pointing to a hairline crack in one of the main circuit pathways along the dragon's spine. "That's your problem. The connection is broken right there." Lyra leaned in closer, squinting at the tiny defect. "Can you fix it?" "I think so. But it's going to be delicate work. These circuits are much finer than anything we use in human technology." Marcus pulled out his micro-welder and adjusted it to its finest setting. "This might take a while. Why don't you tell me more about your papa while I work?" As Marcus carefully worked on the microscopic repair, Lyra told him about her father. Commander Thane Windwhisper had been one of the lead engineers on the Alliance's newest class of battleships. He was brilliant, creative, and had a gift for making complex technology work in ways its designers never intended. He'd built the little dragon automaton himself, programming it with advanced AI routines that let it learn and adapt to its owner's preferences. He used to say that Good engineering wasn't just about making things work, Lyra said softly. It was about making them work beautifully. Marcus nodded as he guided the micro-welder along the damaged circuit trace. Your papa sounds like a wise man. That's the difference between a technician and a true engineer, understanding that function and form should work together. The repair was incredibly challenging. The Zephyrian circuits operated on different principles than human technology, using quantum resonance patterns that had to be perfectly aligned. One small mistake could fry the entire system. Marcus found himself drawing on techniques he'd learned decades ago, back when he'd worked on military systems that required this level of precision. After 2 hours of painstaking work, Marcus finally set down his tools and activated the automaton's power system. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the little dragon's eyes began to glow with soft blue light. Its wings twitched, then spread wide as it lifted itself into the air with a barely audible hum. Lyra gasped with delight as the automaton began to fly in graceful circles around the workshop. It seemed to recognize her immediately, swooping down to hover near her shoulder and chirping in a melodic tone that sounded almost like music. "Oh, thank you, Mr. Marcus," Lyra exclaimed, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. "You fixed him. Papa's dragon is working again." Marcus smiled, feeling the satisfaction that came from a job well done. "He's a beautiful piece of work, Lyra. Your father is a true artist." The automaton continued its aerial dance, occasionally performing complex loops and spirals that showed off its sophisticated programming. Marcus watched in fascination as it seemed to respond to Lyra's emotions, flying more energetically when she was happy and settling into calmer patterns when she was quiet. "Mr. Marcus," Lyra said hesitantly, "how much do I owe you for the repair?" Marcus waved dismissively. "Don't worry about payment, sweetheart. Consider it a favor for a friend." But Lyra shook her head firmly. "Papa always said that good work deserves good payment. He gave me these to trade if I ever needed to get the dragon fixed." She reached into her small bag and pulled out several items. A few credit chips, some rare minerals from the Zephyrian homeworld, and what looked like a standard military data pad. "That's very thoughtful of you, but really I can't accept payment for something like this," Marcus began, but then his eyes focused on the data pad. There was something familiar about its design, something that made his pulse quicken. "Where did your papa get this data pad?" he asked, trying to keep his voice casual as he picked it up. "He said it was from his time in the military academy," Lyra replied. "He used it for engineering projects. Is it valuable?" Marcus turned the pad over in his hands, and his breath caught in his throat. Etched into the back of the device, so small it was almost invisible, was a symbol that most people would never recognize. But Marcus knew it instantly. The stylized falcon with outstretched wings, surrounded by a circle of stars. It was the insignia of the Falcon unit, one of the most classified special operations groups in human military history. His hands began to tremble slightly as memories flooded back. The Falcon unit had been disbanded 20 years ago after their last mission went catastrophically wrong. The few survivors had been scattered to the winds, their records sealed, their existence officially denied. Marcus had been one of those survivors, though he'd spent the last 2 decades trying to forget everything about his time with the unit. But here was proof that he wasn't the only one still alive. Commander Thane Windwhisper, a Zephyrian with a human military data pad bearing the Falcon unit insignia. It seemed impossible, but the evidence was right in front of him. "Lyra," Marcus said carefully, "did your papa ever mention serving with humans? Maybe during some kind of joint operation?" The girl nodded eagerly. "Oh, yes. He told me stories about his human friends from the old days. He said they taught him things about engineering that weren't in any textbook. He always spoke of them with great respect." Marcus felt his world tilting on its axis. After 20 years of silence, after convincing himself that he was the last surviving member of the Falcon unit, here was evidence that at least one of his old teammates was still alive. Not just alive, but serving in the current war against the hegemony. The implications were staggering. The Falcon unit had been formed specifically to counter Korath technology, using unconventional tactics and experimental equipment. If Thane was applying that knowledge to current Alliance ship designs, it could explain some of the recent tactical successes against hegemony forces. But it also meant that Thane was in incredible danger. The Korath had long memories, and they'd placed bounties on the heads of every Falcon unit member. If they discovered that one of their old enemies was still active, Marcus realized he was staring at the data pad with obvious intensity, and Lyra was looking at him with concern. "Is something wrong, Mr. Marcus? You look pale." No, everything's fine," Marcus said quickly, setting the pad down. "I was just admiring the craftsmanship. Your papa has excellent taste in equipment." But his mind was racing. He needed to find out more about Thane's current situation. If his old teammate was in danger, Marcus had a duty to help him. The Falcon unit might have been officially disbanded, but the bonds between its members ran deeper than any military bureaucracy. "Lyra, you said your papa's ship went to fight the hegemony 6 months ago. Do you know which sector they were deployed to?" "The Outer Rim territories," Lyra replied. "Mama says they're trying to stop the hegemony from taking the mining colonies. But there haven't been any messages in weeks." Marcus felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. The Outer Rim was where the heaviest fighting was taking place. Alliance forces were being pushed back on multiple fronts, and casualty reports were heavily censored. If Thane's ship was out there, the workshop's communication system suddenly chimed, indicating an incoming priority message. Marcus glanced at the display and saw it was from Station Operations, unusual for a civilian repair shop. "I need to take this call," he told Lyra. "Why don't you play with your dragon while I handle some business?" Marcus activated the comm system, and the stern face of Admiral Sarah Chen appeared on the screen. She was the commanding officer of the Alliance Naval Forces stationed at Nexus, a career military officer with a reputation for efficiency and straight talk. "Mr. Torres," she said formally, using his civilian name, "I need to speak with you immediately. It's a matter of significant urgency." Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. Very few people knew his real identity, and even fewer would have any reason to contact him officially. "I'll be right there, Admiral." He turned to Lyra, who was happily watching her dragon perform aerial acrobatics around the workshop. "Sweetheart, I have to step out for a few minutes. Will you be okay here by yourself?" "Of course, Mr. Marcus. Thank you again for fixing my dragon." As Marcus made his way through the station corridors toward the military section, his mind churned with possibilities. The timing couldn't be coincidental. Admiral Chen contacting him just minutes after he'd discovered evidence of Thane's survival. Either someone had been monitoring his workshop, or something much bigger was happening. The military section of Nexus Station was a stark contrast to the chaotic commercial areas. Here, everything was clean, efficient, and heavily secured. Marcus passed through 3 security checkpoints before reaching Admiral Chen's office, each scan reminding him of technologies he'd helped develop decades ago. Admiral Chen was waiting for him in her private office, along with 2 other people Marcus didn't recognize. A middle-aged human man in civilian clothes and a tall, elegant Zephyrian female wearing the dark blue uniform of Alliance Intelligence. "Mr. Torres?" Admiral Chen said as he entered. "Thank you for coming so quickly. Please sit down. We have a great deal to discuss." Marcus took the offered chair, his senses on high alert. "What's this about, Admiral?" "It's about the Falcon unit," she said simply, and Marcus felt the bottom drop out of his world. "More specifically, it's about the fact that we need your help to save what's left of it." Marcus stared at Admiral Chen for a long moment, his mind reeling. After 20 years of carefully constructed civilian life, the past had finally caught up with him. "I think you have me confused with someone else, Admiral. I'm just a mechanic who runs a repair shop." The Zephyrian intelligence officer leaned forward slightly. "Master Sergeant Marcus Torres, formerly of the Falcon Unit's technical division. Specialist in alien technology adaptation and combat engineering. Presumed killed in action during Operation Starbreak Kepler 442 system 20 years ago." Marcus felt his carefully maintained facade cracking. "That man died on Kepler 442. I'm just a civilian contractor now." "We know better," Admiral Chen said gently. "And we also know that you've spent the last 20 years trying to forget what happened out there. But we need you to remember, Marcus, because the war we're fighting now is the same war you fought back then, and we're losing." The human civilian spoke for the first time, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "My name is Director Harrison, Alliance Intelligence. 3 days ago, we received a coded transmission from deep in hegemony space. The authentication codes were 20 years out of date, but they were genuine Falcon unit protocols." Marcus felt his pulse quicken despite his efforts to remain calm. "That's impossible. The Falcon unit was disbanded. All the protocols were changed." "Not all of them," the Zephyrian officer said. "I am Commander Vex Starweaver, and I've spent the last 5 years studying the Falcon unit's operational methods. Some of your emergency protocols were so deeply embedded in Alliance systems that they were never fully purged. Whoever sent that transmission knew exactly which codes would still work." Director Harrison activated a holographic display in the center of the room. The transmission came from the Tartarus system deep in hegemony territory. It was brief, heavily encrypted, and contained only this message: "Phoenix 7 requires immediate extraction. Falcon nest compromised. Package secured, but not for long. Send the engineer." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. Phoenix 7 was Thane's old call sign, and the engineer, that had been Marcus's designation within the unit. After 20 years, his old teammate was calling for help, and somehow he knew that Marcus was still alive. "The Tartarus system is a Korath stronghold," Marcus said slowly. "If someone is trapped there and calling for Falcon extraction, then they're in a situation that requires the specific skills of a Falcon unit operative," Admiral Chen finished. "Skills that we don't have in our current military structure." Commander Starweaver manipulated the holographic display, showing a detailed map of the Tartarus system. "Our intelligence suggests that the hegemony has been developing new weapons technology at a secret facility on Tartarus Prime. If a Falcon operative is there and has secured some kind of package, it could be information vital to the war effort." Marcus studied the display, his engineer's mind automatically analyzing approach vectors, defensive positions, and extraction possibilities. The Tartarus system was a fortress, multiple heavily armed space stations, patrol fleets, and planetary defense networks that could stop a full Alliance battle group. "You're talking about a suicide mission," he said finally. "Even if I wanted to help, which I'm not saying I do, there's no way to get someone into that system undetected." Director Harrison smiled grimly. "That's where human ingenuity comes in. We have a plan, but it requires someone with your specific expertise to make it work." The holographic display shifted to show the technical specifications of a ship Marcus didn't recognize. It was sleek, angular, and covered in sensor arrays and stealth equipment that looked decades ahead of anything he'd seen. "This is the starship Shadowhawk," Admiral Chen explained. "It's a prototype stealth vessel built using technology we've acquired from various sources over the years. Some of that technology came from Falcon unit operations." Marcus leaned forward to study the ship's design more closely. "Those stealth generators look like modified Korath technology, and those sensor arrays are definitely Vorthan design. Where did you get all this?" "From missions like the one that officially killed you," Commander Starweaver said quietly. The Falcon unit's work didn't end when the unit was disbanded. The technology you recovered, the techniques you developed, they've been quietly incorporated into special projects like this one. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. You're saying that everything we went through, all the people we lost, it was all to build ships like this? I'm saying that your sacrifice saved countless lives, Admiral Chen replied firmly. The stealth technology you recovered from the hegemony has prevented them from detecting our supply convoys. The shield modifications you developed have kept our colonies from being bombarded into dust. Your work mattered, Marcus. It still matters. Marcus stood up abruptly and walked to the viewport, staring out at the busy traffic around Nexus Station. Cargo haulers, passenger liners, and patrol ships moved in carefully coordinated patterns, all protected by the very technologies he'd helped develop 2 decades ago. How many of those ships would have been destroyed without the Falcon unit's contributions? What exactly are you asking me to do? He said without turning around. Director Harrison's reflection appeared in the viewport as he joined Marcus at the window. We want you to take the Shadowhawk into hegemony space and extract Phoenix 7. But more than that, we want you to recover whatever package he's secured. Our analysts believe it could be the key to ending this war. I'm not a soldier anymore, Marcus said. I'm a mechanic. I fix things. I don't break them. But that's exactly what we need, Commander Starweaver said, moving to stand on Marcus's other side. This mission isn't about breaking things. It's about understanding them. The Shadowhawk is the most advanced ship in the Alliance fleet, but it's also incredibly complex. We need someone who can make it work under impossible conditions, someone who can adapt and improvise when the mission goes wrong. And we need someone who understands how the Falcon unit operated, Admiral Chen added. Phoenix 7 is expecting extraction protocols that only a former Falcon operative would know. Without that knowledge, even if we could get to him, we couldn't complete the mission. Marcus closed his eyes, feeling the weight of 20 years of carefully suppressed memories. He thought about Lyra, waiting in his shop with her repaired dragon automaton. Her father was out there somewhere, fighting the same enemy that had destroyed Marcus's old unit, if Thane really was trapped behind enemy lines. You said the transmission came 3 days ago, Marcus said finally. If Phoenix 7 is in hegemony space with intelligence they want to extract, why haven't they killed him already? That's what worries us, Director Harrison admitted. Either they don't know what they have, or they're using him as bait. The Korath have long memories, and they know that Falcon operatives don't abandon their teammates. Marcus turned back to face the group. So this could be a trap designed to draw out any surviving Falcon members. It could be, Admiral Chen agreed. But the authentication codes were perfect, and they contained personal information that only Phoenix 7 would know. We believe the transmission is genuine. Commander Starweaver activated another holographic display, this one showing personnel files. We've assembled a small team of specialists for the mission, the best pilots, technicians, and intelligence operatives in the Alliance, but we need someone to lead them. Someone who understands both the technology and the tactics required. Marcus looked at the files floating in the air before him. Young faces, eager expressions, the kind of dedication he remembered from his own early military days. How many of them would come home if the mission went wrong? There's something else, Admiral Chen said quietly. Something we haven't told you yet. She manipulated the holographic display to show recent tactical reports from the Outer Rim. Alliance forces have been suffering heavy casualties in the past 6 months. The hegemony seems to be anticipating our strategies, countering our technological advantages. We think they've developed something new, something that gives them a decisive edge. And you think Phoenix 7 has information about this new weapon? We think Phoenix 7 might have the weapon itself, Director Harrison said grimly. Or at least the intelligence to help us develop countermeasures. Without that information, we estimate that the Alliance will lose the war within the next year. The room fell silent as the weight of the situation settled on Marcus's shoulders. Everything he'd built over the past 20 years, his quiet life, his small business, his carefully constructed anonymity would be destroyed if he accepted this mission. But if he refused, how many more children like Lyra would lose their parents to a war that could have been prevented? "I need some time to think about this," Marcus said finally. "I'm afraid we don't have much time," Admiral Chen replied. "Every day we delay increases the risk that Phoenix 7 will be discovered or that his intelligence will become outdated. We need an answer within 24 hours. Marcus nodded slowly. "I'll give you an answer by tomorrow morning." As he turned to leave, Commander Starweaver spoke again. "Mr. Torres, Marcus, I know this is difficult, but I want you to know that the Falcon unit's reputation within the Alliance is legendary. You and your teammates are considered heroes, even if the public will never know your names." "Heroes don't usually spend 20 years hiding in repair shops," Marcus replied bitterly. "Heroes do what they must to survive," she countered. "And then they do what they must to protect others when the time comes." Marcus left the military section in a daze, his mind churning with conflicting emotions. As he walked back through the commercial districts, he found himself noticing things he'd never paid attention to before. The mixed crews of human and alien traders working together, the children of different species playing in the station's parks, the peaceful coexistence that the Alliance had made possible. All of it was threatened if the hegemony won this war. When he reached his shop, he found Lyra still there, sitting on the floor and watching her dragon perform intricate flight patterns. The little automaton had apparently bonded with her completely, responding to her gestures and even her emotional state. "Mr. Marcus," she said brightly as he entered. "Look what Papa's dragon can do." She held up her hand, and the automaton landed gently on her palm, folding its wings and settling into a comfortable position. Its eyes dimmed to a soft blue glow, and it made a contented humming sound. "Papa programmed him to be a companion," Lyra explained. "When I'm scared or lonely, he comes to comfort me. He's been the only thing keeping me from missing Papa too much." Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. This little girl's father was out there risking his life to protect everything she knew and loved. And if Marcus was right, Thane was also his old teammate, someone who had saved Marcus's life more than once during their time in the Falcon unit. "Lyra," Marcus said gently, "do you remember your papa's real name?" "His full name?" "Commander Thane Windwhisper of the Alliance Navy," she recited proudly. "But his friends from the old days used to call him Phoenix. Papa said it was because he always found a way to rise from the ashes when things went wrong." Phoenix 7. There was no longer any doubt. Lyra's father was his old teammate, and he was trapped behind enemy lines calling for help. Marcus sat down next to Lyra and watched the little dragon as it began to glow more brightly, responding to his presence. The automaton's artificial intelligence was incredibly sophisticated, more advanced than anything the Alliance was currently producing. If Thane had built this as a personal project, what kind of technology was he developing for the war effort? "Lyra, I need to ask you something important," Marcus said carefully. "If I told you that I might be able to help find your papa, would you want me to try?" Her violet eyes went wide with hope. "You could do that? Really?" "I might be able to," Marcus said, "but it would be very dangerous, and there's no guarantee that I'd succeed. I just want to know if you'd want me to try." Lyra was quiet for a long moment, her small hand gently stroking the dragon's metallic scales. "Papa always said that good people help each other when they're in trouble. If you could help him, even if it was dangerous, I think he'd want you to try." Marcus felt the last of his resistance crumble. He'd spent 20 years trying to forget his responsibilities, trying to escape the weight of being a hero. But some duties transcended personal comfort, and some bonds could never be truly broken. "Then I'll try," he promised. I'll do everything I can to bring your papa home." Lyra smiled through tears of gratitude, and the dragon automaton lifted into the air, performing a joyful spiral that seemed to celebrate their shared hope. Marcus stood up and activated his workshop's communication system. It was time to call Admiral Chen and give her the answer she was waiting for. The Falcon unit might have been officially disbanded, but its mission was far from over. The Shadowhawk was unlike anything Marcus had ever worked with, even during his time with the Falcon unit. As he stood in the ship's engineering bay, surrounded by technology that seemed to bend the laws of physics, he felt like a primitive craftsman trying to understand a work of art. The stealth generators use quantum phase manipulation to create a null space around the ship, Commander Vex Starweaver explained, pointing to the massive cylindrical devices that dominated the engine room. "Essentially, we don't exist in normal space-time while they're active." Marcus ran his hands over the sleek surfaces, feeling the barely perceptible vibration of exotic matter containment fields. "This is incredible work, but it's also incredibly unstable. One small malfunction and the entire ship could be scattered across multiple dimensions." "That's why we need you," Admiral Chen said from the doorway. "Our regular engineers understand the theory, but they don't have the practical experience with jury-rigged alien technology that made the Falcon unit so effective." The past 48 hours had been a whirlwind of preparation. Marcus had officially closed his repair shop, telling his regular customers that he was taking a family emergency leave. Lyra had been placed in the care of the Zephyrian embassy on Nexus Station, though she'd insisted on giving Marcus her father's data pad for luck. The weight of the device in his pocket felt like a connection to his old teammate, a reminder of what was at stake. The mission team was small but elite. Lieutenant Sarah Hayes, a human pilot with an intuitive understanding of advanced flight systems. Specialist Corvin Steelclaw, a Thorian demolitions expert whose rock-like physiology made him ideal for boarding operations. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a xenobiology specialist who could analyze alien technology on the fly. And Commander Starweaver, who would coordinate intelligence operations and serve as the team's liaison with Alliance Command. "The journey to Tartarus will take us through 3 different hyperspace routes," Lieutenant Hayes explained as they gathered in the ship's briefing room. "Each jump will bring us deeper into hegemony territory. By the time we reach the final approach, we'll be completely cut off from Alliance support." Specialist Steelclaw's gravelly voice rumbled with approval. "Good. Means the Korath won't expect us to be crazy enough to try it." Dr. Vasquez looked less enthusiastic. "The intelligence reports suggest that the hegemony has been experimenting with some kind of biological weapon at the Tartarus facility. If Phoenix 7 was exposed to it, then we'll deal with that when we find him," Marcus interrupted. "Our job is to get in, locate the target, and extract both him and whatever intelligence he's secured. Everything else is secondary." Commander Starweaver activated the holographic display, showing the Tartarus system in detail. Phoenix 7's last known position was here, in the primary research facility on Tartarus Prime. The facility is heavily shielded and surrounded by automated defenses. Our window of opportunity will be very narrow. Marcus studied the tactical display, his engineer's mind automatically calculating approach vectors and defensive weaknesses. The facility was built into a mountain range on the planet's northern continent, protected by overlapping energy shields and patrolled by Korath fighter squadrons. "What about the stealth systems?" he asked. "Can we maintain phase displacement all the way to the surface?" "Theoretically," Lieutenant Hayes replied, "but the power requirements are enormous. We'll have maybe 20 minutes of full stealth before the generators start to overheat." "Then we'll have to make those 20 minutes count," Marcus said grimly. The first phase of the mission went flawlessly. The Shadowhawk slipped through hegemony patrol routes like a ghost, its advanced stealth systems rendering it invisible to conventional sensors. Marcus spent the journey familiarizing himself with the ship's exotic technology, making small adjustments and improvements that increased efficiency by precious percentage points. On the second day, as they approached the outer edge of the Tartarus system, the ship's communication array detected something unexpected. A weak signal broadcasting on an old Falcon unit emergency frequency. "It's Phoenix 7, Commander Starweaver confirmed after running the signal through her decryption systems. "But the message is strange. He's not asking for extraction anymore. He's warning us away." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine as he listened to the decoded transmission. Thane's voice was strained, exhausted, but still recognizably his old teammate. "Falcon Nest, this is Phoenix 7. Mission parameters have changed. The package is larger than expected, and I am not alone. Recommend abort. Repeat, recommend abort. The Korath know you're coming." "It's a trap," Dr. Vasquez said immediately. "They've compromised him, and they're using his transmission to lure us in." But Marcus shook his head. "No. Listen to the voice stress patterns. He's genuinely trying to warn us off. Something's changed down there. Something that's made him reconsider the extraction." Lieutenant Hayes looked up from her navigation console. "We're 12 hours out from Tartarus Prime. If we're going to abort, we need to decide now." Marcus found himself thinking about Lyra, waiting back on Nexus Station for news of her father. About all the Alliance families who were depending on the intelligence that Phoenix 7 had secured. About the war that could be lost without the information they were trying to retrieve. "We continue the mission," he decided. "But we go in expecting the worst." The approach to Tartarus Prime was a masterpiece of precision flying. Lieutenant Hayes threaded the Shadowhawk through the planet's defense grid with skill that would have impressed even the legendary Falcon unit pilots. The stealth systems held perfectly, rendering them invisible as they descended through the atmosphere toward the research facility. But as they approached the mountain complex, Marcus noticed something that made his blood run cold. "Those aren't Korath energy signatures," he said, studying his sensor readings. "There's something else down there, something I've never seen before." The facility was larger than their intelligence had suggested, built not just into the mountainside, but deep underground as well. And from the depths of that complex, strange energy readings pulsed with an almost organic rhythm. "I'm detecting multiple life signs in the lower levels," Dr. Vasquez reported. "But they're not reading as any known species. The biosignatures are wrong somehow." Commander Starweaver's expression was grim. "The biological weapons research. They've been experimenting on prisoners." Marcus felt rage building in his chest. If the Korath had subjected Thane to biological experimentation, he forced himself to stay calm. Anger would only make the mission more dangerous. "There," he said, pointing to a particular section of the facility. "That's where the Falcon unit emergency beacon is coming from. Phoenix 7 is in the lower research levels. The extraction itself was a study in controlled chaos. They landed the Shadowhawk on a concealed platform and used shaped charges to breach the facility's outer defenses. Specialist Steel Claw's demolitions expertise proved invaluable as they fought their way through increasingly bizarre security systems. The Korath defenders were unlike anything Marcus had faced before. They moved with jerky, unnatural motions, and their organic armor seemed to pulse with the same strange energy signatures he'd detected from orbit. Dr. Vasquez took tissue samples as they advanced, her face growing increasingly pale as she analyzed the results. "They're not entirely Korath anymore," she whispered. "Something's been changing their genetic structure, enhancing them but also corrupting them." They found Phoenix 7 in a containment cell 3 levels below ground, but he wasn't alone. With him was a human woman Marcus didn't recognize, and 2 other Zephyrians who appeared to be civilian scientists. All of them looked exhausted and traumatized, but they were alive. "Marcus?" Thane's voice was filled with disbelief as the rescue team breached the cell door. "I never thought. After 20 years. Hello, old friend," Marcus replied, helping Thane to his feet. "We've come to take you home." But Thane shook his head urgently. "You don't understand. We can't leave yet. Not without destroying this place. They're not just developing weapons here, Marcus. They're changing themselves, turning themselves into something that isn't entirely alive anymore." The human woman stepped forward, her Alliance intelligence uniform torn but still recognizable. "Agent Sarah Morgan, Deep Cover Operations. I've been infiltrating this facility for 8 months. What they're doing here, it's an abomination. They're trying to merge biological life with some kind of synthetic consciousness. The early subjects went insane. But the latest experiments..." She gestured toward the laboratory visible through the cell's transparent wall. In the chambers beyond, Marcus could see creatures that defied description. Part Korath, part machine, part something else entirely. They moved with predatory grace, their enhanced forms radiating malevolent intelligence. "They call it the hybrid protocol," one of the Zephyrian scientists explained. "They're trying to create a new form of life that combines the best aspects of organic beings and artificial intelligence. But the process is corrupting both elements. The hybrids are incredibly powerful, but they're also completely insane." Thane pulled Marcus aside, speaking in the coded language they'd used during Falcon unit operations. "The package isn't just intelligence data. I've been sabotaging their research for months, introducing flaws into their hybrid creation process. But I also recovered something else, the complete genetic template for their enhancement process. With that data, we could potentially develop countermeasures, maybe even reverse the effects on existing hybrids." Marcus felt the weight of decision settling on his shoulders. They could extract the team and the intelligence data, completing their mission successfully. But leaving the facility intact would mean allowing the Korath to continue their horrific experiments. "How long would it take to destroy this place completely?" he asked Specialist Steelclaw. The Thorian demolitions expert surveyed the facility's structure through his tactical scanner. "Give me 30 minutes with their power core, and I can create a chain reaction that will level the entire mountain. But we'd have maybe 10 minutes to reach minimum safe distance." "And if those hybrid creatures escape during the evacuation?" Dr. Vasquez had been studying her readings throughout the conversation. "The hybrids are contained by specialized electromagnetic fields. If the power core goes critical, those fields will fail. We'd be fighting our way out through creatures that are stronger, faster, and more resilient than anything we've encountered." Marcus closed his eyes, feeling the familiar weight of command decisions that had haunted him for 20 years. But this time was different. This time he wasn't just responsible for his own team's survival, but potentially for preventing a horror that could spread throughout the galaxy. "We'd destroy the facility," he decided. "All of it, whatever the risk." The next 20 minutes were the longest of Marcus's life. While Specialist Steelclaw worked his demolitions magic on the facility's power core, the rest of the team fought a running battle through corridors filled with Korath guards and escaped hybrid creatures. The enhanced beings were every bit as terrifying as Dr. Vasquez had predicted, requiring concentrated firepower to bring down. But the real surprise came when they reached the surface. The Shadowhawk was surrounded by Korath fighters, its stealth systems compromised by the facility's detection grid. Lieutenant Hayes was trapped in the cockpit, unable to take off without exposing the ship to devastating fire. "Falcon Nest, this is Phoenix 7. Thane spoke into his emergency transmitter. "We need an immediate dust-off, but the LZ is hot." Marcus looked at the tactical situation and made a decision that would have seemed insane to anyone who didn't know the Falcon unit's history. "Hayes, prepare for emergency departure. Everyone else, we're going to give them something to really worry about." Using the hybrid research data that Thane had secured, Marcus quickly rigged a signal amplifier that would broadcast disruption frequencies to the Korath communication networks. It wouldn't work for long, but it might create enough chaos to cover their escape. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Korath fighters suddenly lost coordination, their hybrid-enhanced pilots convulsing as the disruption frequencies interfered with their augmented nervous systems. In the confusion, the Shadowhawk launched itself skyward, its stealth systems re-engaging as they cleared the planet's atmosphere. Behind them, Specialist Steelclaw's demolition charges reached critical mass. The entire mountain complex disappeared in a brilliant flash of light, taking with it years of horrific research and dozens of hybrid creatures that would never threaten the galaxy. "Falcon Nest, this is Phoenix 7, Thane said as they reached safe hyperspace distance. "Package secured, facility destroyed, team intact, mission accomplished." Marcus felt a profound sense of completion as he listened to his old teammate use the traditional Falcon unit mission closure code. After 20 years of exile, he was finally home. The journey back to Alliance space was filled with debriefings, medical examinations, and intelligence analysis. The data they'd recovered would keep Alliance scientists busy for years, developing countermeasures to the Korath's biological weapons and understanding the true scope of their enemy's desperation. But for Marcus, the most important moment came when they docked at Nexus Station, and he was able to keep his promise to a little girl who'd been waiting for her father to come home. Lyra's reunion with Thane was everything Marcus had hoped for. Father and daughter held each other tightly, while the little dragon automaton flew joyful loops around them, its artificial intelligence responding to their happiness with melodic, chirping sounds. "Thank you," Thane said to Marcus afterward. "Not just for the rescue, but for taking care of my daughter while I was gone. A parent couldn't ask for a better friend." Marcus smiled, feeling lighter than he had in decades. That's what teammates do for each other. Always have, always will. Admiral Chen found them in the station's central plaza, where Lyra was demonstrating her dragon's new flight patterns to a crowd of delighted onlookers. "The Alliance Council wants to reactivate the Falcon unit," she told Marcus. "Official reinstatement, full military honors, and a mandate to counter the hegemony's exotic weapons programs." Marcus looked at Thane, who nodded slowly. "I've been fighting this war for 3 years without the support I needed. Having the old team back together, it could make all the difference." "What about our cover identities?" Marcus asked. "Our civilian lives?" Admiral Chen smiled. "Who says you can't have both? The Falcon unit always worked best when its members maintained normal lives outside the military. Cover identities aren't just protection. They're what keep you connected to what you're fighting for." Marcus looked around the plaza, watching humans and aliens working together, children playing without fear, families reunited after long separations. This was what the Falcon unit had always fought to protect, not governments or territories, but the simple right of peaceful beings to live their lives in safety. "We'll need better equipment," he said finally, "and a base of operations that can support long-term deep cover missions." "Already taken care of," Admiral Chen replied. "Your repair shop has been designated as a Falcon unit front operation. Full Alliance support, classified budget, and access to any technology you need." Thane laughed, the first genuinely happy sound Marcus had heard from his old teammate. "So you get to keep being a mechanic after all, just with much more interesting toys to fix." As they walked back toward Marcus's shop, Lyra skipping ahead with her dragon dancing around her, Marcus felt a sense of purpose that had been missing from his life for 20 years. He was still a mechanic, still someone who fixed things when they broke. But now he had the chance to fix things on a scale that could save the galaxy. The war against the Korath hegemony was far from over. There would be other missions, other desperate rescues, other impossible choices to make. But this time, Marcus wouldn't face them alone. The Falcon unit was back, and they would continue their mission to protect the innocent and defend the Alliance against any threat, because that's what heroes do, even when they're just mechanics with dirty hands and quiet lives. They answer the call when their friends need them. They keep their promises to little girls who believe in miracles. And they never stop fighting for a universe where everyone can live in peace. The Falcon had risen from the ashes once again, and the galaxy was safer for it.